me off on a migraine headache right there.
Interesting.
And what it looked like is through the monitor, it looked like it actually was below and in the clouds. It was not in orbit. This thing, it was a lot lower in the sky than a satellite. That's for sure.
Okay, and it was moving slower, obviously, it sounds like, than a satellite, or was it moving faster?
I would say it was moving about the same speed, but it did slow way down after it got hit with multiple lasers. I mean, the crowd had lasers too, so it was it was getting bombarded with probably 3 at the same time at a certain point.
Is that
lasers?
Are you can corroborate that as well, Bree?
Yes, that's true. And what I found interesting was the next morning we reviewed it on film, and it did flash very brightly. It had like an inner circle and then an outer circle of both flashing, one after the other, and it was very bright, and that was straight into the camera. And something different than I saw was as it was leaving, it shot out that laser, and it was maybe, it's hard to say because it was up in the sky, but it could have been maybe 30, 40 feet, and it was probably about 20 times as long as the actual craft itself. And I was surprised that to the naked eye, it just shot out that neon blue laser, as opposed to in the camera, it just looked like a straight-on flash.
Yeah, well, that is fascinating. Matter of fact, before we get any further, I'm going to see if we have Mary Kennedy on the line here. Mary, are you here with us?
Yeah, I am.
Oh, thank you for saying something. I was calling you, of course, and then I noticed your phone number popped up there, but I didn't want to just say, hello, Mary, are you there? And so go ahead and jump on there. Mary, were you at the ECETI Skywatch that night when Lee Strauss and Bree Brockton were seeing this same thing?
No, I was not at ECETI. I wasn't able to make it to the ranch. I was at Kalakala Lake on Sunday night.
Oh, wonderful. Well, we're going to keep you on the line because we need to talk about the paranormal activity that happened at Takalaka Lake as well. But okay. First of all, let's see if we can make sure we wound up. Oh, by the way, this major craft, I believe, that came from our left to our right that night was much, much brighter than any satellite I have ever seen. Is that your guys' opinion as well?
Yes, most definitely.
We've observed the ISS before many times. This thing was not the ISS. This is plain to see. It dips below the clouds. It goes through in the clouds. You can definitely see in the footage that this is definitely a craft that we don't have, something that we don't have for sure.
Yeah. And what was so exciting about it is it appeared that it was responding back to us. It was being followed and circled by the blue laser. So, hey, it shot out a blue laser back at us. I thought it was fantastic. It's like, okay, he knows that we know he's there.
It responded for sure. Definitely.
And that, of course, as we know from Dr. Richard Haynes, who is one of our UFO I Team scientific consultants, who wrote the book, by the way, called CE5, Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, the idea being that close encounters of the fifth kind are human-initiated contact with craft or alien beings, and this definitely was a CE5 in my book. What do you guys think?
Absolutely, it was. No doubt.
I agree. And you just wonder what steps you can take to further communicate with it when something like that happens, which we would all love to do.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So, by the way, that is on tape, right? We got to confirm with everyone that they are going to be able to eventually see this phenomena that we saw as well in the Wade Brothers film, Ambition Pictures film that we were cooperating with that weekend. So I think people will be very excited to see not only the light flare-ups, probably how many times, by the way, I'll ask both of you separately, how many times, by the way, do you think that this thing flared up to a very bright light as it was moving?
I would say 4 times to a very bright light. Once was just so intense, it was unbelievable.
Yeah, that's what I counted. Well, I counted 4 bright flashes, and then it was the irregular, and then it's like the grand finale was the laser shooting out of it at the end.
And of course, some people, I think, that were at the center by the cameras just saw the flash come at them. In other words, it was coming straight at them. But Bree, you're mentioning that this laser was sighted coming out of the craft from people that were in a different location that could see it better. Is that right?
Yes, it seemed that the people to the right of me saw the actual laser come out of the ship. And they actually said, wow, the same time I did, because we were all just so astounded and amazed that something that bright and powerful would come out of the ship like that. And what was interesting was someone who was to my left on the other side, they were looking at it with a through a lens, binocular lens, and they saw that the laser was green as opposed to blue. And then someone else who was also looking through a lens saw it as green. And with the naked eye, I saw it as a bright neon blue.
Wow. So you actually were able to see it. And when you saw the laser come out of the object, was it coming in your direction as if you were by the cameras, or did you notice it from an angle?
It was at an angle. It didn't come into my direction. It was at an angle.
Hang on just a second, Scotty. We just joined Scotty with the group here too. Are you there, Scotty?
I'm here.
Okay, great. Well, we're just going to get you in here, and we will be bringing you in periodically just throughout the conversation, but I thought I'd get you on the line right away. And Scotty, of course, is the UFO I Team's ex-Boeing engineer that has a real good perspective on some of these interesting objects and phenomena that we experienced at Mount Adams. But, okay, so now that we have just experienced this was one of the first things that I believe happened on the night before Lee Strauss went up to the top of the mountain, just to give everyone a kind of a time frame. And then, of course,
there was one other major point that we should probably mention before we go on.
Well, that's great. Put your mouth right into the mouthpiece of your phone and tell us what the heck that was. Okay.
So, as we had set up, we saw these bands of light through the night vision. And we always, when we're doing filming, we always use a Canon camera or a still camera to do time-lapse photography. And I saw those bands, and it struck me. I couldn't see them with the naked eye yet, but I went over to my point and shoot and started looking through the footage and noticed that we were getting a lot of aurora borealis at that moment as well.
Oh, yes. That was just fantastic. You want to explain or describe what we saw when the aurora borealis started to show up?
Well, it started to show up in the night vision first, like I was saying, and then, of course, I went over to the Canon and was back-checking some photos and noticing that it was really bright in the time-lapse. And then later on that night, it got so bright that you could see it with the naked eye. So that was pretty impressive.
Yes, it was. Do you remember Bree seeing that as well?
I remember lightly seeing it. Yeah, I could tell that it was lighter up above the back of the mountain.
Which is kind of interesting at that latitude. Of course, we were at southern Washington State. This was nowhere near the Canadian border, which we've seen the northern lights up in that area as well in our investigations. But this was down in southern Washington, and I understand even in Oregon they can periodically notice the northern lights.
Yeah, we were fortunate to see that night. That added to our extra special show.
Yeah, so we had a lot of things going on down there at the ECETI Ranch. Now, at this point,
this call has been forwarded to an automated voice messaging system.
So that
20694760609 is not available.
I don't want to
The
lose
mailbox
everything,
is full
so
and cannot accept any messages at this time. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Okay, good.
Goodbye.
We got rid of that one. That was tough. I was trying to get Troy on the line there, and of course, if I had turned that voice message off halfway through, I was afraid I was going to lose all of you, so I just let it run. So I apologize for that for the listeners. But yeah, the whole idea that James Gilliland, who runs the ECETI Ranch out there for the last 32 years, was also available during those Skywatch nights and mentioned the fact that he believes there is a family of Bigfoot around the area that comes into the camp periodically. Matter of fact, I remember him showing us a footprint of what he calls a juvenile Bigfoot, and it was about 16 inches long and very, very wide to be a human foot, that he just cast the week before we got there. Does anyone remember that event that he was talking about?
I heard him speak about that, and Stephanie and I, another UFO I Team member, we walked out into the field in front of where everyone lines the chairs up to view Mount Adams, and there were metal fence posts along the entire length of walking out to the very end of the field. And Stephanie said, "Oh, did you know that the people that work at the ranch put apples on top of those posts, and they're gone the next morning, and because the Bigfoot loves the apples?" And I thought, oh, I could see that, and I thought that was quite interesting.
Well, yes, and the fact that the Bigfoot cast that he had made of the plaster of Paris cast was actually shown to us, and was very impressive. And that was, he said, out in the field just beyond where we skywatched the week before we got there. That's interesting stuff. Okay. Now, what I thought we could do is skip to the actual Takalak Lake incidents that happened the next few days while Lee Strauss and Philip Wade and their cameraman Daniel were doing what they needed to do on top of Mount Adams. Some of the team, including myself and Dan Weiss, the producer, and his cameraman Josh, as well as the rest of the UFO I Team, and that would be Ray Leo and Scotty was there, and Troy, and we got Scotty on the line as well. So we're going to start talking about the Takalak Lake area, and as in the absence of Dan Weiss and Ray Leo, I think we're going to have to recount what happened at the campsite there next to the lake while we were on the north part of the lake, and you guys, Lee Strauss, were climbing up the mountain itself. Lee, you want to give your impression, or Scotty, I'm sorry, give your impressions of the actual location where we were camping at Takalak Lake.
We were on the northwest side of the lake, where we had a southeast view of the mountain, and you could see the snow piled up in the middle of it, extending from about the top all the way down to the